We're really proud of what we do in this city and with this city. It's the home of all our children's services, the home of our charity, Children in Need, and it's a city, as you've heard, that this year stood together in the face of an appalling attack, and in doing so moved and inspired us all. The BBC was honoured to partner Ariana Grande's One Love concert, a concert that was defined by dignity and defiance and showcased the spirit of Manchester the world over. And as you heard in Tony Walsh's words early on, this is a place where we don't do no can do, we just stress yes we can. And I guess that's why we're all here today. We know that together we have a real opportunity to create a media world that can do more than ever before for children and for their future. We want to encourage their creativity, give them the skills and confidence that will enable them to thrive, help them to communicate, collaborate, and keep each other safe. But there's something else I think we need to do too, and it's something that's I've not been able to get out of my mind. A few months ago, I went to visit Teesside and spent a lunchtime with a group of academics at a university, and they told me how strong the evidence is that the whole pattern of a young person's life is fixed in those first crucial years. Now, we kind of know that. But the thing that bothered me and has stuck with me is that they also said how bright, optimistic children with great ideas about their future were told by families and friends, do you know what? Don't bother. You can't change. And the age that those children kind of gave up, the age they fell back on the idea that it's impossible for them to better themselves, that age was 8 years old. And that's dreadful. And we shouldn't allow that. We need to do everything we can right now to create a future for children that we can be proud of, so we can all look back in 10 years' time and be sure we didn't let a generation down. So what can be done? This is a critical moment for us, maybe even an existential moment for those of us in the media industry. We know that if you are not relevant, if we're not relevant to a child world today, you'll simply not be relevant in the future. And we've been reminded this morning of just how much has changed in the media world and how the pace of that change is far faster than many predicted. Let me say at the outset, I believe choice is a great thing. It's fantastic that we're all offering so much to young people. When I was a child in the Stone Age, the choices I had were so limited. There was Bill and Ben and Johnny Morris's Animal Magic, and Dennis the Menace was just a comic. It's great to see him reinvented with the BBC for TV. I loved all that. But what I'd give to be a kid today was such an incredible world of choice, from Minecraft and Pokemon Go to everything on offer, from Toca Boca and Lego to, and you'll forgive the mention, CBeebies Playtime Island and BBC iPlayer Kids. And the fact that so many of us are in this room, leaders in our industry, from Netflix to Amazon, Google to Facebook, Disney to ABC, Viacom to YouTube, and so many more besides, is a sign that all of us are not only constantly asking ourselves, how can we stay relevant, but also how we can stay responsible. And today, I want to talk about how the BBC is responding to this challenge, about what we believe is our public service role in a digital age, our manifesto, if you like, for children, and how we think we can work with others to deliver it. But first, I want to say a few words about the broader debate and some of the issues we all now face. We all know that anxiety about major advances in technology is nothing new. In the 18th century, the birth of the novel, I suppose new technology in its own time, had reports of an epidemic of reading sweeping Europe, driving promiscuity and speeding moral decline. In fact, throughout history, everything from sofas to streetlights, the waltz to rock and roll, railways to bicycles have caused outbreaks of moral panic. But this feels different. The speed and scale of change is electrifying and is only getting faster. The digital world is opening up extraordinary possibilities for young people. It has the potential to benefit virtually every area of their lives, from education and learning to health and well-being to creativity, self-expression and play. But we also know it's opening them up to real and pressing dangers. Even those who led the way confess to not being sure where we're headed. It's telling that people like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were careful to bring up their children with firm restrictions on tech. And all of us will have heard Sean Parker, the founding president of Facebook, speaking recently. He talked about how social media was designed from the start explicitly to be addictive and exploit a vulnerability in human psychology. He said, God knows what we're doing to our children's brains. I remember, you all will too, a video that went viral a few years ago. It showed a 1-year-old girl inspecting a magazine. She tries to swipe it, she tries to expand it, she presses it to make it play, and in frustration throws it away. For a toddler, we were told a magazine is just a tablet that's broken. Technology has rewired children's minds. But for me, the most striking thing was almost the opposite. Technology being sophisticated enough to make use of the fine motor skills that 1-year-olds have been practicing for millennia, and opening up a whole new world of excitement and opportunity. By the way, if we needed any reminder of the point about the pace of change and urgency, that girl will now be about 8 years old. That means, according to a recent survey, and we sort of heard it from the Vox Pops earlier on, that her tech capabilities outstrip those of her parents around 2 years ago. You may remember a report from Australia last month where a mother was wondering why a delivery driver from Uber Eats had turned up at her door with a large serving of McDonald's fries, until she worked out that her 6-year-old son had found her old phone, charged it up, broken the passcode, and placed an order via the app. When you think that the average age for children to receive their first smartphone is now 10, it's not unlikely that that 1-year-old girl with a magazine will have one on her Christmas list, alongside the other must-haves like Hatchimals or Star Wars BB-8, all, by the way, connected toys in one way or another. But it's important to remember that the response to that video was divided between those who fell back in horror and those who saw it as the latest milestone on a path to a bright, tech-led future. Today, views on the influence of tech within society are still very much conflicted. We have parents who are hugely concerned about their children being isolated when they see them glued to their phones at home, in the car, in bed, first thing in the morning or last thing at night, who get nervous when children describe their phone as their best friend. But they also increasingly realize that for vast numbers of children, online also offers them an entirely new space to make, to create, to discover and assert their identity. Look at what tablets and the Apple Pencil are doing for children learning to draw. Or think of the kind of friendships you can have way beyond the playground we all remember. It's exciting, and at its best, it's liberating, life-affirming. It can also help them cope with issues around family, school, health, or disability that might have left them feeling overwhelmingly isolated just a generation ago. Then there are those children who are hugely savvy about the online world, who don't lump social media into one heap like we might do, but who are smart and discerning about the apps they use and see different platforms as distinct as their grandparents saw telephones and television. But while they're quick to tell you that you don't Snapchat in your school uniform if you want to protect yourself from strangers, at the same time, they find it really hard to distinguish online between what's real and what's false. As a recent BBC report showed, they struggle to tell the difference between a serious headline in a national newspaper and a satirical one in The Onion. For me, the lesson is that we cannot be tempted to oversimplify the arguments. One day we read reports that screen time is making young children smarter, the next that it harms their development. One day we hear about the dangers of VR for children's eyesight. The next we're told it could be crucial to early identification and even treatment of vision disorders. The reality is there's so much we don't know about how digital affects young people. Researchers and scientists, as we know, are working now worldwide to try to get to grips with every aspect, from the impact on their behaviors and values, to their mental and physical health, to their neurological development. There won't be any easy answers, but it's also in everybody's interest to maximize the amazing opportunities for children growing up in a fully connected world. But we must also take steps together to minimize the risks. And if it's tough for parents, experts, tech leaders to understand the forces at play, of course it's far tougher for children. They may have all the technological know-how at their disposal, but there's no real evidence that their emotional development is any more advanced today than that of their grandparents. We know that this gap makes young people vulnerable, and it underlines that it's now more important than ever that we step up and take action to protect them. After all, it's childhood that's at stake. Next year, there are new Europe-wide data regulations coming our way, and every organisation is getting to grips with them and what they mean for business. And they will undoubtedly turn up the heat on this really important debate. For example, what is the right age for children to give informed consent for the use of their data online? What responsibility should organisations have to make sure their platform is right for the age range who are really using it? By the time they're 12, half of all children in this country have a social media profile. But we all know that's not supposed to happen until they're 13. And what about things like terms and conditions? Have you ever read the terms and conditions of the online services you've signed up to? How can we expect children to make sense of them if we can't? Can we really deem this informed consent? These debates are complex, and getting the answers right really matters. These are global platforms appealing to children growing up in different cultures and with different expectations. It's clear to me we need to work together across international boundaries, just like those platforms children love to use, to find a way to provide them with a world that is fun, playful, clear, and safe. This is a responsibility for all of us. But for public service broadcasters, like the BBC, it's fundamental. It's part of the reason we exist. It's why we're here. And yet, just at the moment that public service broadcasting is needed, I believe more than ever, it's also coming under assault. Now, it won't surprise you to hear me say that I believe public service broadcasting matters. In fact, I believe it will matter more in the future than ever before in its history, because it's needed more than ever before. At the BBC, it has always been our mission to inform, educate, and entertain the whole country, and to inspire too. That included our youngest audiences right from the start, from the very first radio programme for children when we began broadcasting in 1922, Children's Hour, to their very first TV show in 1946 for the children. We have also got the longest running children's programme in the world, Blue Peter, 60 next year. And Doctor Who has been going for more than 50 years, and in that time has evolved with its audiences, making the leap from niche children's sci-fi to a global phenomenon. And it's because we have been part of the fabric of childhood for so many generations of children in the UK that they, now as adults, want us to play a big part in the lives of their own children in turn. That's why we can have huge Hollywood stars like Tom Hardy reading bedtime stories for CBeebies. He said it was a great pleasure to appear in something that was actually appropriate for his kids to watch. And in fact, we haven't announced it yet, but I can tell you that we've got two other great British stars lined up to read bedtime stories over the festive period. Eddie Redmayne on Christmas Day and Emily Watson on Boxing Day. Well, we've announced it now. Creating great programmes and exciting moments for young audiences is absolutely in our DNA. That's part of the reason that even in a world where there is so much competition for people's time and attention, we're still the most watched and most loved for UK children. We know that they want the BBC to be a place they can rely on for news and information they can trust, for high-quality content, for help with their education, to learn about the world and their place in it, but also to be entertained, surprised, or just made to laugh. But we can never be complacent. And of course, we're very much aware that older and younger audiences are increasingly consuming media in different ways. Last year, for the first time, 5 to 15-year-olds in the UK spent more time online than in front of the TV. For adults overall, linear TV accounts for nearly 2/3 of their viewing. For 16 to 24s, it's barely 1/3. Now, the exact figures may look different in your variety of countries that you come from, but from the conversations I've had, it seems like we are all heading in the same direction. For many of us in the media industry, competing successfully for young people's time and attention is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, strategic challenges we all now face. That's why the major ambition I have set the whole of the BBC as we move towards our second century is to reinvent public service broadcasting, what it stands for, what it means for a new generation. That work is well underway, but I want to pick out 3 areas in which we believe that, working in partnership with others, we can make a real difference for young people. The 3 pillars, if you like, of our children's manifesto. The first is by making truly outstanding content, high-quality, distinctive programs that speak directly to young audiences and respond to their aspirations. Earlier this year, we announced our biggest investment in children's content and services in a generation. We've been working on this for some time. An additional £34 million to help us reimagine how we serve our youngest audiences in the years ahead. It means we're taking a totally fresh look at what we offer them. We want to encourage children to explore, to be creative, to get inspired. And we want to experiment with new forms of content and new ways for young people to interact with our services. In today's global media landscape, the choice for young people is near limitless. No generation has ever had such an extraordinary wealth of content to choose from, with no geographical boundaries to restrict them. But even with all this choice and great global content, we know that children and young people also really value programs that relate directly to them and their lives. Homegrown content that can help them make sense of the world and their place in it. And not just programs that are designed for the family, but shows that are conceived and created specifically for them. Shows like Pablo. Pablo is the very first animated TV series to star an autistic character, and the first with an all-autistic core cast too. One mother got in touch with the team to tell them what a profoundly positive effect the show had had on her autistic son. Pablo, he had said to her, is just like me. We take a lot of pride in reflecting as many different lives as we can on screen. And that means putting children center stage in everything we do for them. It means live action drama for preschoolers starring under 5s. They say never work with animals or children, but we say it's the right thing to do. And I'm really delighted we're bringing the same sensibility to what we're doing for young teens in the future. Part of our new £34 million investment is to develop new formats and ideas for the 12 to 15-year-old age group. We'll have more to say about that next year. But what's great is that tech isn't just helping us to reach people in new ways, it's allowing us to create differently. Recently, we've commissioned a new program set in a high school in Edinburgh that doesn't just push the boundaries for this young teen audience in subject matter, but also, as an improvised drama, in form too. I think that's really exciting. But the biggest thing we're focusing on for all our audiences, young and old, is personalisation. Using data to create a BBC that is tailored uniquely to everyone who chooses us. We're already rolling out sign-in for our services, and this is going to help every child and every parent get even more value from the BBC. Because tech gives us the opportunity to ensure we're offering content that's individual to each child, tailored to their likes and needs, while offering parents new ways to give their kids permissions and keep them safe. Our goal is to create for every child their own unique gateway to access the whole world of the BBC. Not just our dedicated children's programs and services, but everything else we do that's fun, interesting, and appropriate to them. Big primetime entertainment shows like Strictly, for example, you might know it as Dancing with the Stars. It's hugely popular with young audiences. So is our Premier League highlight show, Match of the Day. And David Attenborough's natural history latest, Blue Planet 2, is an extraordinary hit with children. That, by the way, Blue Planet 2, is the biggest factual programme of the year for 4 to 15-year-olds, and by some big margin. We want them to skip safely and seamlessly from drama to comedy to music to natural history and research for their science GCSEs, to discover everything they love and everything they need, but also things they don't yet know they love and that can inspire and stimulate them in new ways. What we do to help children with their formal education is another good example of where we're heading. Today, BBC Bitesize is our free online study resource designed to help school-age students across the UK prepare for schoolwork and exams. It's used by nearly half of primary school students each term, and 8 out of 10 of those in secondary schools, and more than half of them say it's helped them achieve better grades. But in a personalised world, we want to do even more, to be much more tailored to the specific needs of each young person. Imagine the possibilities of learning that is truly targeted, that responds to the individual progress of a child, adapts to their strengths and their weaknesses, that's dedicated to bringing out their very best. That's what we're working on. But we're also asking ourselves what more we can do with that incredible relationship we've built. How can we use it to help them with other areas they might need individual help? Everything from guidance on subject choices and careers to support with their mental health to guidance on how to make good choices online. There's so much more we could do. And this is where I come to the second area where I think working with others we can bring about real change, and that's in driving standards and values. I said earlier that many of the issues around the impacts of technology will take time to understand. But we're all aware that some issues are not nuanced or open to debate. They're clear-cut. They're pressing moral problems. We know they're doing real harm right now, and left unchecked, they'll lead to a dangerous and damaging future for children's media. Children exposed daily to unfiltered content that is harmful and inappropriate, an online environment that fails to protect children from all kinds of cyberbullying, flaming and trolling, excluding, outing, revenge porn. I'm delighted that the Duke of Cambridge will be joining us to take part in this summit. And I've had the opportunity to spend some time with the Duke on this subject, and I've been struck, really struck, by his personal commitment and conviction when it comes to children and their well-being online. I know when you hear him speak tomorrow, you'll see that too. The Duke and the Royal Foundation have already shown real leadership on the issue of mental health. And in a world where countless surveys report that adults find it hard on social media, where they say it can have negative effects on their well-being, the issues for young people are even more acute. We're only just starting to understand what it means to grow up with an indelible digital footprint, without the ability to learn from your mistakes and exercise the right to be a child. Now the Duke and the Royal Foundation are taking the lead on the issue of online bullying, bringing together a dedicated task force and spearheading the Stop, Speak, Support campaign, a kind of green cross code for cyberbullying. We, the BBC, are proud to be a member of the task force, and we're really excited about the opportunity to work with others to help find the right answers, and in particular to help make technology part of the solution for young people. That's why tomorrow we're launching a brand new BBC website designed specifically to help kids develop the confidence and resilience they need to thrive in the digital space. It's aimed at the 9 to 12s. That's an age group we know are particularly affected by the day-to-day pressures and dilemmas of life online. And it offers them guidance on what they say they want help with. It's called Own It, because it's there to help them take control and be the boss of their online lives. We're delivering it in partnership with a whole range of organisations in the field of child internet safety. And it's all supported by an engine room of expert advisors, doctors, academics who are specialists in this field. Our goal is to create a one-stop shop where children can find everything they need to navigate their lives online with confidence and positivity. And this brings me to the third way in which I believe we can make a difference. It's picked out very clearly as one of the 5 themes of this summit. And the summit is built around this idea, and it's something which matters a lot to me and I think is really, really important. I want to highlight it, and that's empowerment. Instead of thinking about how we might restrict children's activities in the digital world, we need to focus on how we build a world that gives them freedom, that equips them with the skills they need to make the most of that freedom, and to express themselves in the digital world. This is something we care passionately about at the BBC. And one of the projects we're proud of is the BBC Microbit, part of our Make It Digital campaign focusing on digital skills. You may have heard Dave Coplin talk about it earlier. It's a coding device that we gave to every 11 to 12-year-old in the country last summer. In other words, up to 1 million young people around the UK got a microbit of their own. Our goal was to help inspire them to get coding and invest in the future skills they and the UK need. But to do it, we needed to bring together more than 30 partners. Companies like Arm, Barclays, Microsoft, Samsung contributed everything from hardware, software, design to manufacture and distribution. To me, it's a great example of what you can achieve when you bring a really strong partnership, a coalition together around a really clear mission. Far more than any of us could do on their own, we achieved together. But we want to build on something else we do too. School Report is another really good initiative that we've been running for more than 10 years. It's a journalism project that offers all 11 to 18-year-olds the chance to tell the news stories that matter to them in their own way and take them to a worldwide audience via the BBC. It's open all year round with around 60,000 people taking part. But once a year, we hold a BBC News Day when we throw open the doors of our newsrooms around the country to young people. We offer them the chance to talk to our journalists, to take a look behind the scenes, or actually to appear on our local and national news bulletins, whether it's interviewing Rory McIlroy or reporting on teenage sleep for the National Evening News. They do it. And one of the things they learn, of course, is the principles of good journalism. And in the world of fake news, we think we can take this further and do more to empower young people to take control of their lives online. A few weeks ago, one of our reporters went into a secondary school in Birmingham to hear directly from young teenagers about how they distinguish between fact and fiction. I have to say, it was alarming to see how even these bright, very savvy, very switched-on pupils struggle to cope with the volume of information coming at them every day. And when they were asked to tell the difference between real and fake news headlines, they asked themselves all the right questions. Does the source seem trustworthy? Does it look plausible? But they arrived at all the wrong conclusions. It was really hard for them even to recognize the different agendas were at play, let alone to understand what those different agendas were. And I think we've got a real responsibility here. We, the BBC, are the most trusted source of news in this country, one of the most trusted worldwide. We've got real breadth and specialism in this area to bring to bear. That's why, as of next March, we'll be going into schools to help tackle this issue of fake news. By sharing our journalistic expertise, we want to give young people the skills and awareness they need to be confident about identifying the real news stories and calling out the fakes. And tomorrow we're chairing a panel session when we'll talk in detail about what our plans are. But by bringing our expertise together with our schools network, we're going to bring the knowledge of the newsroom to the schoolroom. There's one other way in which we want to help to make sure that we're listening to the needs of children. Just as we did with the microbit, I hope we could be a catalyst for a whole coalition of us to come together. We want to set up a panel across the industry, across borders, dedicated to finding ways to reach out and empower children whose voices are seldom heard, where we can push for real progress together. We know this isn't easy, but it's too important to ignore. It will take determination, innovation, commitment, but we have those in spades, and we'd love you to join us if you feel as passionately about this as we do. It'll make us more joined up, more collaborative than ever. It will give children a voice they've never had before, and I hope that conversation, that coalition, could be one of the most important legacies of this summit. I'm really grateful for the chance to speak to you all this morning to set out the BBC's manifesto for children's media and how we plan with Alice and others to deliver what we said we would do. But we're all here because we know that we can't make a difference alone. It's only by working together towards common goals with shared standards and values that we will create the world children are relying on us for. I believe that this summit, the people in this room, you all, have a real opportunity to make a genuine leap forward in these few days, and you have a real responsibility to do so too. Let's seize the moment and let's make it count. Thank you.